Welcome to our webinar, Embracing the Owner Mentality with Joan Burge and her very special guest, Daren Martin, PhD. Daren is author of A Company of Owners as well as Whiteboard, and we are very excited to have Daren as our guest today because he has a lot to share with you. And Daren is one of our featured speakers at the administrative conference we're hosting this October, the Revolutionary Assistant. Welcome, everyone, as you log into today's webinar and say your hellos there in the chat box. It's wonderful to see you and so much activity. Hello, hello. Nancy, Sherry, Sherilyn, Andrea, it's so hard to keep up with, with all of you as you say hello, but we love to see it, so keep those coming. And before I turn the program over to Joan and Daren today, I have a few logistics to review with you. So Joan and Daren will be speaking for about 40 minutes, followed by a question and answer later in the program. So you can submit your questions throughout the webinar. Just mark them as question in the chat, and we will flag those or watch for those and facilitate those questions later on. And just keep in mind that we do have a lot of you online today, hundreds already so far, and probably closer to thousands once we get really rolling. So keep in mind they may not be able to answer everyone's question, but they sure will try. We do not have a handout today. There is no handout. So just rest easy, take lots of notes of all the great points you're going to hear today from Joan and Daren. And just repeating that, no handout today. Okay, now I would like to introduce Joan Burge, founder and CEO of Office Dynamics International. Joan Burge is an accomplished author, professional speaker, consultant, and corporate trainer. In 1990, Joan created a business in an untapped niche, overcoming monumental obstacles involving managers' attitudes, prejudices, and stereotypes about executive and administrative assistants. Office Dynamics International is a global industry leader providing high-performance, sophisticated executive and administrative training and coaching. Joan's never-ending quest to provide top-notch educational programs to assistants and their executives has earned her the respect of premier clients like Cisco, AT&T, Humana Inc., Sunoco, Procter & Gamble, and Nationwide Insurance, to name a few. Welcome, Joan.
Hi, Jasmine. Yay, it's Webinar Wednesday. I'm so excited. And as always, I love watching all the names come in and to see all the different places that everyone's coming from. I'm sure Daren's going to be very excited too. We had 3,400 people register for today's webinar, so I believe this is a topic that everyone is intrigued by. We are very excited to have Daren Martin with us today. We purposely chose Daren as one of our premier speakers for our 23rd Annual Conference for Administrative Excellence, which is being held this October in Las Vegas, because our theme is the revolutionary assistant. And we like Daren's revolutionary ideas and philosophies about changing workplace cultures. Let me tell you just a little bit about Daren before we say hello. Daren is the author of A Company of Owners, a book that's taking the corporate world by storm, transforming how organizations operate and how employees think. It's, by the way, it's an awesome book. You can see I've already flagged several pages. I've read the whole thing, and we're already applying his philosophies at our organization. With a PhD in psychology and impressive background leading corporate change initiatives, Daren has a unique and inspiring message every administrative professional will benefit from hearing. So welcome, Daren.
Hey, Joan. I am, and all the rest of you, I am so excited about this. I've really been looking forward to this time.
Good. Well, we're excited to have you. And I don't know, have you ever had such a great audience, almost 3,400 people on a webinar?
Absolutely.
As far as a webinar goes?
No, this is fantastic. This is definitely a first, so I am stoked.
Good, good.
And well, after Joan hearing your intro, I'm just wondering, why am I even talking? Why am I even on here? We should just hear from you, but very impressive, obviously.
Thank you, thank you. Well, this is going to be great, and for our audience, I do have specific questions from Daren, but we're also going to keep it casual and formal and probably go back and forth a little bit. And be sure to put your questions in the chat box. As you think of them, we'll be sure to get to them later on. So the first question, Daren, I have for you, of course, is can you start, telling our attendees about your approach and this new philosophy that you're teaching and how it ties into being revolutionary?
Okay, so the book, actually, A Company of Owners, started with a conversation with the CEO of a $20 billion company. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I told him in the hallway, you need to fire your employees. Now, before everybody starts hanging up, okay, just hear me out on this. People are going, wait a minute, you're telling people to fire us. And that was not my point. He said, Martin, what are you talking about? And I said, listen, you don't want employees. You want people who act like owners. And one of the things I'm excited about with this audience, I bet if we were to do a survey with them, that because of their role and because of the positions they're in, that there is an inordinate amount of owners within the admin rank. But we're going to talk about, how that can get even better today. But the reality is your typical U.S. company, well, let me ask you, what do you think the engagement level is at your typical U.S. company? I'm talking about people who show up, act like it's their company, ready to rock and roll. What do you think the average engagement is according to a Gallup poll?
Are you asking me or our audience?
Well, I'm asking both, so people
Everybody, all right? So
can respond. I'm not asking you, Joan, because you read the book. You're going to know exactly what the answer is.
I would have an advantage. That wouldn't be fair.
All right, so people, and I can't see the chat, by the way, but people might be chiming in. But
okay.
I get guesses kind of all over the board. The reality is it's 29%. 29% engagement at your typical U.S. company, which means that most companies are operating effectively with a third of their workforce. And I think that's abysmal, and I think we can change that.
Well, we had a few people close. We had Lisa had 26%. Sandra had 20%.
Wow.
I have the results of our poll, and it looks like 43% of our audience picked the 26 to 50% range.
Wow. Okay, so you ran that poll. So that's
Wow.
I started to say awesome, but it's really not awesome. It's kind of sad, right? That's the engagement level. And this, I talk in the book about two kinds of employees. There are basically two out there. They're the Stacys, and the Stacys are super engaged, involved, really on top of their game. They're bringing new ideas. They're bringing new energy to the company. And then there are the Crawleys, okay? The Crawleys are what I call zombie employees. Maybe it's ironic that I made the woman the engaged one and the man not the engaged one. Who knows, for your audience? I think they will love that. But, yeah, so Crawleys are zombie employees. They're just kind of going through the motions. And we've got a lot of Crawleys in companies across the board. I call it the corporate zombie apocalypse, which if you just walk around the hallway of a typical company, you find a lot of people that are just acting like drones. And I don't think that's good for them. I don't think that's good for the company. And I think it drags us down overall just as a society. So let's change that.
Mm-hmm. So your concept truly is revolutionary in terms of, historically for years and decades, the mentality of companies is that we have employees, who work for us. But
Absolutely.
I know I've seen it in my own company now as I've been shifting more to that owner and making each employee feel, even though I have a small group, but feeling like they are really participating, they are an owner, and their decisions do matter, and their contributions make a difference. They're acting differently. I'm getting better results. The company's doing better. We're able to give better service to everyone. So it definitely is a whole shift. And how are you going to get these people to change their thinking? I'm curious.
Joan, I love it. I love what you're doing and what you're describing, because that is the company of the future. And I say in the end of the book of, hey, if you don't believe this and you don't want to adopt this, fine. Be prepared to be extinct, because we are seeing a big movement towards what you've just described. Not to get all fancy, but a couple of big words, if I can throw these out, that they're important. But a meritocracy is when you have a company or a society where you get promoted based on your merits, what you do. I'm all for that. You perform, then you get, advancement. There's a new one, a new word. It's probably not a new word, but it's new to the corporate, language. It's called a holacracy. Do you know what a holacracy is, Joan? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Do you know what? I'm very proud to say I just found out in January because we toured Zappos here in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I did not know. I was like, what is this?
Okay, so
but I'm sure most of our audience doesn't know.
No, and I didn't know until I toured Zappos actually about a year ago. Zappos just announced, 6 months ago or so, that they are completely doing away with management, with supervisors, with any of that. You're going to have your job. That's your position. They expect you to own it. Now, that's way out there for most of the companies that are even chiming in and listening in today. That's probably way down the road potentially. But it's interesting that a company like Zappos is saying, hey, we're going to hire the right people. We're going to hire A performers, and then we're going to treat them like A performers. I say in the book, if you want people to act like owners, you got to treat them like owners. And part of the reason we have such low engagement rate is people aren't being given, the runway or the leeway to actually perform and act like owners. So they just end up checking out at some point.
I think you just said something, it's not on our little script here, but it really struck me when you said people aren't being given the leeway. And I know this is going to build into what we want to talk about, but something I know I'm always talking to assistants is to take the initiative. Don't wait to be given permission to act that way, to have the authority, to be empowered, because they may never get it, right? So I was thinking, kind of leads into my next question, my perspective, I was feeling like this owner mentality could truly be a secret weapon for an assistant to go from being an order taker and task doer to being an indispensable contributor. So
I love it. Do you want to be fireproof? I mean, absolutely indispensable to any company. Listen to what Joan was just talking about. And Joan, obviously, I think most people listening may know your background, but you've proven this with your own life. You came up through the ranks, you established yourself, and I know you did that by doing exactly what you're talking about. You did not wait for somebody to tell you what to do. You looked around, found out what needed to be done, and went and did it. And I hope everybody listening right now is going to be at the conference because we're going to have a great time in Vegas. But I'm going to give you a little tip. It's a little heads up. I'm hoping everybody forgets between now and then. But one of the things I do when I'm with a live audience is I will stand at the front of the room and I'll do just this, hold it up and go, who wants a free copy of my book? Who wants a free copy of my book? What do you think the entire audience does at that moment? It's a good book, Joan. They're interested. What do they do? They raise their hand. I want it. And then I'll tempt them some more. Who wants a free copy? Who wants a free copy? And I'll do that. Who gets the book? The person who leaves their seat and actually runs toward the stage and puts their hand out. Oh. And then now we're gonna have 500 people rush the stage if I do this in Vegas now.
There they go. They're already okay. Remember that if you're coming to conference, run up.
They're running for the stage already. But yes, so when I do that, and then I make the point. Listen, owners go to the ball. They don't wait for the ball to come to them. They go to where the action is. In fact, Wayne Gretzky, the old hockey player, one of the most successful all-time hockey players, said he attributes his success that he doesn't go to where the puck is, he skates to where the puck is going to be. He's anticipating and running ahead of that. And I think that is the single biggest thing that everybody listening to this can do is don't wait for the need, anticipate the need. Can I show you something real cool?
Sure.
Okay, you'll be the judge of that, but hold on. I gotta get up. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. So I'm staying at the Westin outside of DC, Can y'all see this?
Hold it up one more. Let's see. Pack light, stay fit.
Okay.
All right.
So here's what it says. Call Service Express to experience Weston gear lending. Get New Balance clothing and shoes delivered to your room to use during your stay for only $5.
Wow.
It's their Weston workout. So if I forgot workout clothes, now I'm going to tell you what is very upsetting about this for me, because I have no excuse now for not working out. I can't say I don't have the shoes.
Exactly.
I don't have the right clothes. But this is anticipating. This is them looking around as a company, and a little shout out to the Weston. I'm not even a regular Weston stayer, but that's huge because they are anticipating a need and fixing it before you even knew that you had it. That's what owners do.
Very good. That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. When we spoke on the phone, you said something I really liked. You said, owners are learners. You participate and you show up. So can you speak to that for our administrative group?
So what's the old, 95% is showing up? Quote's been attributed to a number of different people. I was at a conference and was getting ready to speak to an audience. I got on the elevator and people were talking about the conference and going to the conference. And one of them said, I've been in the business for 20 years. I hate coming to stuff because there's never anything new to learn. And I thought, oh my goodness, wow, you are stuck. Because I think the most successful people are people who wake up every day as a sponge to learn something new, whether it's reading a book, readers or leaders, listening to podcasts. I think something that's huge. Okay, so congratulations, everybody that's tuned in right now. Give yourself a big pat on the back, okay? Give yourself a big round of applause. Why? Because you showed up for this. You could have been doing a lot of other things, but you said, you know what? I'm excited about this. I may learn something. Just by nature, the fact that you tuned into this broadcast means that you fit into that category. You're a learner. People that attend the conference, Joan, you know the difference between people who would show up at that, like what we're going to be doing in October, and people who would never show up. And generally, it's a separated. That's the cream of the crop. Those are the folks that say, I'm going to go find out something new. I've been doing what I've been doing for a long time. I have a PhD. I probably spent upwards of $5,000-$6,000 last year, maybe more, going to things for me to learn, and I'm the trainer, buying books, getting new information, and in my experience, people that are really willing to kind of develop themselves, they separate themselves from the pack very quickly.
They really do, and I know what's interesting, what happens in our industry or arena is, one, it takes a very long time and it's an uphill road to get an organization to invest in in-depth training for their assistants. So it could take 2 years. I mean, one company, one big bank we've been working with, it's been 2 years that they've been working on getting approval for me to come on site and teach our very lengthy flagship program called the Star Achievement Series. So it's a massive program. There's 2 levels of learning, 8 full-day workshops. So it does take longer, to get in. But what's interesting, when we finally do get on site, you have this group that is so eager to come, and they're chomping at the bits, and they can't wait. Oh my gosh, they can't get enough of it. And then there's a group who don't take advantage, and I feel like that's so sad, because it's such a big deal to be able to get that training, within the organization. And like you said, I think that's what separates what I call the star performing or star achieving assistant from the ordinary,
Absolutely. And they're probably showing up to the training the same way they show up to life and the same way they show up to work every day. And it's sad to me because, wow, first of all, we're living in one of the richest, most wonderful countries in the world, right? Yeah. We have jobs. Everybody that's listening to this is probably employed. And we have so much opportunity. And to see that squandered away, people, have you ever heard this? You say to somebody, how are you doing? and their response is no complaints. Now think about that. Think about that as a metrics for how my day is going. Well, I have no complaints. So I'm starting to say to people, if someone says no complaints, I want to say back to them, oh, well, we should come up with some, because there's got to be something you could be complaining about. But, you know, how different is that from going through life in a way that I am outstanding, I am fantastic, because the way we talk to ourselves, the way we talk about ourselves really does influence how we show up. And, you know, I don't know if you know this, but it's actually a proven fact. Every single person in the world makes other people happy. Every person. It's a you know, scientific proof. Some people make people happy when they walk in the room, and some people when they walk out of the room. Right? Okay. So what kind of person are you? What kind of person are you being? And that difference between when you show up to a training or you show up to something like that and you are full on and ready to give it your best, I guarantee you that's going to happen at the conference, because they're not going to have any choice. We're gonna force them to, right, Joan?
Exactly.
It's gonna be game on. But yeah, people are just bored, and they are bored with life. They're bored with work, and it's not supposed to be that way. It can be so much better.
Okay, great. Well, I'm watching the chat while we're talking too. I'm kind of looking back and forth here. So it looks like we have a request to get to some specifics. Somebody out there is hungry for a little more meat from us, and so I think, well, what we wanted to do first of all was set the framework, which is very important. And I would say that this really is not like anything you have probably heard if you're really listening in to what Daren is saying. So, because this is very new and definitely a trend where companies are moving, and so what I always say to people is being an owner is owning what you're hearing, and to say, how can I take this and apply it? And I also like to do a rating scale. What I always do, and we could do this with the character. I want you to share the 8 characteristics. What I always say to people, whenever we're going through a list of characteristics or attributes, and I do this with myself, it's to ask yourself, what percentage of time do you portray that? So I'm sure everyone at different times have an ownership mentality or take the initiative. But what I would say, within a year's time, are you doing that 20% of the time? Are you doing it 80% of the time? Are you doing it 75% of the time? So the idea is to up your percentage. None of us will ever be 100% of everything all the time. It's not humanly possible.
Right.
So Daren is going to share with us from his book. He lists 8 fundamental characteristics of owners. So he's going to go into detail at our conference with these, but I really wanted him to kind of go through the 8 today. And what I would like you to do as you hear these characteristics, rate yourself on that scale over a year's time. What percentage of time do you display those characteristics?